What is going on, everybody? It is February 15th, 2023. It's going to be the day log episode of Rank Q and live stream view, and then the PM session / trade review that I took. I didn't take it on stream. I ended up taking it about an hour after the stream ended, and I'll go over that in discussion at full length. So, daily time frame. What has been the narrative ever since CPI? What have I been pointing to and suggesting this entire time? I've never let go of this idea. I'm still bullish. Why is that? Because we're still inside of that bullish dealing range. So what should you be looking for going into each day? You should be looking for higher prices. You stand on one side and say, I'm going to look for higher prices. And if I don't get it, then I'm not going to do anything. And if you did that both days, you are more than likely successful. There was something that you could have gotten into. Today, I showcased a very good example of simply experience and how to anticipate more or less consolidation accumulation phases, because those are going to happen and you can't prematurely get in the market before those unfold. So again, looking at this dealing range, what have we done? Drop down into the discount optimal trade entry. Ever since that point in time, go back to Wednesday's log, I've been calling for higher prices in this. So it's a really good, clear example of narrative and just staying on side with the daily time frame. It's the clearest way to understand bias and the narrative. And if you know what it is, what should we be looking for? Well, we should be looking for this high to eventually be targeted. So every day up until that high is taken, you're just looking for longs, staying on one side, looking for longs, not doing shorts, looking for longs, and keep pressing it. And that's all you have to do. As long as you know the narrative, you're electing to stay on one side, and it keeps the template clear and clean, and it keeps you out of taking stupid, unnecessary trades. That's why I preach it, because for a newer student, it's going to refine so much of your unnecessary trades that you take and the losses that you do take, because you're not countering what the narrative is doing. Again, to reiterate, we've taken out sell side liquidity after we dropped down inside of the internal range. So all of this was internal sell side liquidity. Again, from this dealing range low up to this high, we're taking out internal sell side liquidity. All of this was forecasted even from Tuesday, CPI, sell side being taken. Yesterday, going into the log on Tuesday to Thursday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, looking for higher prices. Even yesterday, what was I suggesting? Higher prices. Today, on the live stream, we dropped down into this inversion. Why is it an inversion? Because we closed above it here, dropped down into it. So to me, I'm not going to look at these as areas when they were sell side imbalances. I'm not going to look at it as an area to short, because what is the higher time frame suggesting? It's suggesting higher prices. So everything on these time frames are going to submit to the parent. So I'm not looking to short at these. I'm looking for price to get above it, utilize it as support in order to reach towards that target, which is here. So that's why narrative is very important, because you're not looking at this as sell opportunities. You're looking at it as areas to turn into support for us to go long. So look at tomorrow. People would be, even in our community, they might look at this as an area, well, that's a fair value gap, it's bearish. If I looked at this dealing range, we're inside of a premium from this high down to this low, so that means I should be going short. No, because the parent is the daily, the weekly, the monthly. Those suggest higher prices. So for me, I'm anticipating this to become an inversion. Much like this today when we're resting inside of it, I was anticipating this to become an inversion. So we closed on the close of today, closed above it, became an inversion. Same thing with this tomorrow. I'm going to anticipate this to become an inversion. Down close candle here, that's your bullish order block. Look at how we opened, dropped down into it, inversion. The CE level of it, 50% respected. So from here, I'm expecting higher prices. Price should not drop beneath this inversion. We should continuously press higher. Does that make sense to everybody? What narrative is? To me, when you simplify it like that, it's very simple, and you just get into line with whatever it's doing. I don't know why narrative is a difficult concept for some people. For me, it's always been easy. I've always understood that the higher time frames are the parent, and you just submit to that idea. and maybe it's a lack of patience that people struggle with, and they don't want to submit to that. But for me, it's the easiest way to trade. And if you're able to do that, you could do one shot, one kill profiles where you're just holding on to a position for the entire week. Maybe even down here yesterday, you're just holding on to a position, especially if you're a swing trader, and just holding out to this long-term target. That's not my particular style, but if that's what you so choose, I mean, narrative is the easiest way to do that. So again, what did we do here? I'm not looking at this. Some people were looking at this and they could sell off a bit. Sure. If you're very experienced, you can counter the overall narrative because you're understanding that even within a narrative, it's going to need a retracement and it's going to end up countering it per se. Like today, you could have sold short, but all that was really doing was just having a retracement to end up going long. For me, I was electing to just wait on the side of, I'm just going to wait for higher prices. So looking at this dealing range low up to that high, this was a civvy at one point. We reacted off it to go short. Now, for me, I'm not going to sell short. I'm looking for longs because that's the highest probability thing for me to do. We drop down into a discount, optimal trade entry. Look at the bodies, the way they're respecting this fair value gap in here. Let's go down to a 15-minute time frame. Again, all of this was annotated even during the live stream. What is this up close candle here? If you extend that out in time, look at the mean threshold of it. Look at the respect of the bodies, not the wicks, the bodies. So this pattern here is a breaker. Why is it a breaker? Because you have a low, a high, a lower low, then a higher high. You see this dot, those dots in there I was annotating. So that is your bullish breaker. What's inside of the bullish breaker? There was this inefficiency here. Now, we closed a little bit underneath it, right in there, but the parent PD array in this instance would be the breaker. The fair value gap is just lending support to that idea. And what is this all inside of? You're just looking at basic market structure from this low all the way up to the high. We're dropping down. This is equilibrium, dropping down into a discount. So what should we be looking for is our first potential target would be the high here. This inefficiency you could utilize as a premium PD array to target. That's what we reacted off of to go short in the morning. That's the reason why I wasn't looking for shorts, because the narrative for me is bullish. So I'm going to stick on that side and demonstrate how you can just go on side with it. Anything above it, you're going to start just marking up and utilizing as potential targets. So everything above you is your premium, those inefficiencies, that high in there. Let's go down into a 5-minute. So you see how I've worked all the way from a daily now down to a 5-minute, and I'll work into a 1-minute. You can't just jump into a 1-minute and start looking for patterns within the silver bullet. It doesn't work like that. Anybody that tells you otherwise, to me, it's just not an optimal way of learning. And I find this is the best way to learn. That's the way I was able to find consistent profitability, was through learning narrative. So knowing all of that, I'm going to take away that breaker, but know that when we drop down into this, this is the area of that breaker inside of a discount. What are you doing on the way down? You're taking out multiple levels of sell side liquidity underneath the lows there, underneath the relative equal lows here, and underneath the lows there. So you're taking out sell side liquidity. Now, as soon as we reached down this morning during the live stream, we were printing a low and starting to displace higher. And I'm going to reel it back just so you guys can see what it looked like. This inefficiency here turned into an inversion. Now, this is more or less, I can't, there's only one thing I can pull out that would help, but more or less to me, this is experience, what kept me out of taking a trade in the morning, because I saw a lot of people taking this trade and getting chopped up and taking a loss. There's a few things actually. A, not picking a bottom or a top in a market is very useful. Even if you already are preconceiving, like I was preconceiving that we were bullish today and that was basically printing the low inside of the discount and inside of that breaker, I'm comfortable with waiting for a energetic displacement higher, because this is my overall drawn liquidity is that high up there, right? Because that's the dealing range high of that 15-minute dealing range. So I was explaining this morning is I'm not trying to pick a short or a position down here at the very bottom. I was comfortable with the idea is even if price displaced higher in here, I'm comfortable with that idea because it's giving me enough information that I'm pretty on side. From that point in time, if price does displace from, if you just look at this dealing range from that high down to this low, if it displaces above the equilibrium, at that point in time, I'm already confident within the narrative. Price is already proving itself to me. I didn't pick a bottom. It's fairly easy to pick off a trade in there. And that's my particular style. Another point that I was making is, to me, if you looked at a 15-minute chart at that point in time, it just didn't, there wasn't enough accumulation sideways. And that's the only point I can make technically that would keep you out of something like today in experience. Because I was explaining, you visually, just logically looking at this, could you see an up close candle just sprint off higher? Does that look right to all of you? Does that look like something you've seen before? No, that doesn't just happen. You don't just have down close candles drop off and then just an immediate spike higher with no accumulation sideways. The first point of the core content is the 4 stages of price delivery, which is consolidation, expansion, retracement, reversal. So if you've expanded, you can expect consolidation or just accumulation for then price to expand higher. So technically that's the reasoning behind what I was looking at. And experience was telling me to sit still, not get FOMO'd into these positions where everybody was trying to pick off longs. Even a bunch of live streamers were trying to pick off longs. And this is where experience pays. I've been through these areas where I've taken plenty of losses. And at one point or another, your experience will pay for it. Your experience will tell you to sit still. That's when you listen to your gut, you listen to your intuition to sit still, don't do anything. We dropped off lower one more time because what we were doing is accumulating liquidity. Buy side was resting above here and sell side was here. So we're taking out sell side inside of that discount, right? Remember the 15-minute time frame, that's the framework of all this. Inside of the 15-minute dealing range, we're still bullish. There's no reason to switch anything just because price dropped lower. The narrative is bullish. So I'm sure some people saw this drop lower. Oh, there's a bearish fair value gap in here. Let me short off of this. No, I'm not going to short this. The narrative is bullish. So I have to stick with that idea, especially if there's engineered buy side liquidity and there's sell side resting beneath that we just took out. So in here, this is when I got off stream and I was, got away from the charts, ate some breakfast, and then I was looking at coming into the lunch session, basically the macro right before it. And if price has been lethargic all day, basically throughout AM session, it just chopped around and it built a lot of liquidity, whether it's buy side or sell side. In this instance, it's buy side. Look how much buy side it's built up. And the narrative, I'm fairly confident that it's bullish, right? So to me, it's a really good setup. Dollar index was trading off lower. Other indexes were in confluence. ES was moving higher. YM was moving higher. So it made sense, even though it's not within the silver bullet, I can still take a trade. Now there's no fair value gap in here, but what do we have? This inversion. If you drop down into a 1-minute time frame, you can start to see where the buy side is being built. So above these highs here and these relative equal highs there. And overall, I'm looking for this high all the way up here. I've mentioned this even on live stream. I mentioned these highs in here. They're pretty relatively equal and clean. But particularly, I'm aiming for that dealing range high at 17,933. So this is what the 2022 model, but instead of a fair value gap, you're exchanging it with a inversion. So inside of that 5-minute, this orange shaded is the 5-minute. I'm going to refine it into the 1-minute. So this is the 1-minute. CJ, what's a high probability inversion fair value gap? One that is resting inside of a discount that is targeting the narrative drawn liquidity. So what I mean by that is when we start to come into this area, look at the dealing range from this low up to this high. Where is this inversion sitting? Right inside of a discount, that equilibrium there. So I'm entering long in here. And if you check Twitter for my executions, I didn't do it on paper trading like I normally do for the live stream. I just did it on my actual live account. I got receipts for it. I'm going to show the whole P&L this week, tomorrow. I'm probably done for the week, FYI. I've made my chunk of money this week, so I may not do anything tomorrow. May just annotate in the live stream. But what time is this entry happening? Look at the end of lunch macro, or end of the, let's just say after the silver bullet hour. This is going into lunch. The 20-minute window from 11:50 to 12:10. This is happening right at that exact window. So that is also giving me a confluence to the trade idea. There's so many things to this. I don't know if you've noticed. This video is a very good one. There's a lot of gems being dropped. And I'm sure people are going to bypass it because it doesn't have a fancy clickbait title to it. But the real ones are sitting through this and learning. So in here, at this moment in time, I'm understanding that I'm inside of a macro. I'm entering inside of an inversion that is inside of a discount after taking out sell side. Buy side is resting up here. All of this is happening inside of a discount on that 15-minute time frame inside of that breaker, right? I know it's not on the screen, but this is happening within that breaker. So we start to move off higher here. We drop down a couple more times in the inversion. I'm comfortable with it. Why would I be comfortable sitting through this? Because we've taken out sell side and we built up so much buy side liquidity. Even on this run higher here, we built up even more buy side. So this much engineered buy side liquidity fitting within the bullish narrative, man, I'm 100%. I'm pretty damn confident in the trade idea. That doesn't mean I'm over leveraging, but I'm comfortable sitting through, a little bit of time. And eventually we tear off right into the buy side liquidity, and I took out at this high up here. I was comfortable with basically about 50 handles in here. So I don't need to hold on all the way up to this point. I didn't know whether we're going to do that today or not, but I was comfortable with that 50 handles. That's all I really needed. The rest of the day, we ended up attacking that buy side liquidity. I think the last kind of hour price was pretty wild, to be honest. But I'll review it real quick. So we dropped down in here. I think the 15-minute time frame was really the clearest. 15-minute, we dropped down into this fair value gap there. And everything on the left side of the curve can be utilized on the right. So go back for homework and look at this left side and extend out any inefficiencies and utilize it for the right side. What do we do in the end of macro? We tapped the order block a few times and then rallied. This range right here was pretty sloppy, if I had to be honest. But we ended up taking out the buy side liquidity resting there, which was, remember, the dealing range high from this low up to that high. Narrative is bullish. It should seek higher prices and buy side liquidity, and should disrespect any bearish PD arrays. Just study for your homework the last basically 10 minutes, 5 minutes of the day, and look how rapidly we displaced right up into that buy side. I thought it was a really interesting study. And that's, to me, this delivery in here could have really got somebody hurt, because you could have kept pushing for these longs in here, eventually getting stopped out in the last 10 minutes. It rallies towards buy side. So that's the only reason I particularly love PM session, especially the end of the day macros. It can get a little nasty in there, and even for me, it's very difficult to trade. So if I can get my portions way before that happens, like I did in here, I'm content with sitting out, even though I know the draw should be at this high. So study all that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it wasn't too lengthy. I'm satisfied with it. Again, all my videos are one takes. I don't go back and edit anything. So I'm very content so far with what I've said in here. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be live streaming tomorrow, 15 minutes before the New York Open. Until then, good luck and good trading, everybody. Be safe.